Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the REDX podcast. This is the best place for real estate professionals to learn from the best agents and coaches in the industry. I'm Robert Sullivan. I'll be your host today, and I'm super excited for today's guest, Blair Ballin from Arizona. He's going to be sharing his expertise on what we should be doing in this low inventory market. I don't know if you've heard, but we're in a low inventory market right now. So Blair's going to help us out talking about his sphere. He's got a ton of valuable information coming your way. Welcome to the show, Blair. We're glad to have you.
And thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Yeah, we are excited. Our pre-show prep getting to talk was a lot of fun. Hey, if you're joining us, go ahead and let us know in the comments where you're joining us from. Say hi to us. Just a few things for the audience is this is an interactive participatory event. So whether you're on YouTube, Facebook, or REDX website, if you've got a question for Blair, anything that we can do for you, put it in the chat. We'll try to get to it in this show today. Make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel and our podcast and you can do that at theredx.com/podcast. So you know when we've got a new episode coming up. And let's just get started, Blair. Why don't you, before we jump into the meat, tell everybody a little bit about you, what's going on in your market, and just let us get to know you.
Absolutely. Yeah. So again, thanks for having me. Blair Ballin, Phoenix, Arizona, also Scottsdale and surrounding areas. Been a realtor over 20 years, all full-time here in the Valley, as we call it. Market right now, like many other markets, super, super hot for sellers. We're at about a half-month supply of inventory or so. In my 20 plus years, never seen anything close to that, maybe 2 months or so. So half a month is it's crazy. So lots of adaptation to it. Lots of competitiveness between everything. And here we are.
And here we are. And I mean, you nailed it on the head what's going on. Everybody knows right now, whether you're a buyer's agent, a seller's agent, listings are a premium, and finding a house for your buyer, it's just highly competitive. But we do know that there are people like you that are being successful in this low inventory market. And I think a lot of it is some tried and true methods, nothing new. And so that's what we want to talk to you about. You have used several different systems and your own technologies to stay in contact with your sphere and grow that. And that's what we want to hear more about today. So tell us a little bit about what you've learned in your 20 plus years about growing that sphere and how you've built real relationships through that.
Absolutely. And I will absolutely touch on that. What I also wanted to talk about was, as a buyer agent, which in your sphere, you can have buyers too. It doesn't just have to be listings. I think there's so many, in this market, as you mentioned, listings are gold. And when you have them, it's basically like, here's your paycheck, everything's done. A lot of stuff happens in between. But I think what so many agents tend to not know about or forget when representing buyers is that no matter what your experience level is, making sure that you go above and beyond to make sure the listing agent is aware of you, not harassing them, but calling them, what do we need to do to get this offer accepted? How can we shine and outshine the other offers, all that stuff, to give your buyer the best chance, because chances are there's going to be 20 other offers on the table. How can you stand out as both the realtor representing that buyer, in addition to just the buyer standing out, waving appraisals or whatever. So anyway, as far as database stuff, I mean, I'll be the first one to say, for the longest time, I had always said, like, I don't really have a database, no matter how many transactions I closed, because it just felt like they would remember me and then they would call me regardless if I stayed in touch with them or not. So there wasn't really anything I had to do. And then I quickly realized there really was. And as I analyzed the numbers, I looked back to see year over year, the years that I would do better were any of the years that I put a much bigger effort into contacting them, caring about them, trying to, be more than just the closed transaction. So that's over the past couple years, that's been pre-COVID, maybe like a a movie theater event where we rent out a movie theater and then invite everyone to that and have some giveaways along with it. So it's not just the movie experience, which in of itself was pretty cool. So then maybe like around Thanksgiving, do a pie giveaway. So, the particulars would be sending everyone an invitation and then doing like a text and then an email and then a follow-up and then inviting everyone over to, here in the Phoenix area, 2 different offices, locations to make sure I'm covering all of the areas, not excluding anyone. They'd stop by, pick up a pie. And it was an amazing experience, the years that I've done it, from the standpoint, like I go to Costco, I pick up these pies, they're whatever amount of money, the amount doesn't make a difference. And I have people coming in from like 30 miles away to pick up whatever the price of the pie is. And to me, I'm like, what, they're driving 30 miles to pick it up. Why would you do that? But
It's
then
a Costco pie.
Exactly. The thing is huge. It's like the size of any of these like vision boards or pictures or whatever. But it was so interesting to me, and it got me to realize more. Like it's not they're coming by to get the pie, but it's more that you're reaching out to them to care. And other past clients in this database, they'd be like, every year we look forward to getting the pie. Like it's a big deal, and it's so cool to be part of that. So other stuff, maybe like picnics in the park or picnic in the parks, whatever. I try to do a quarterly newsletter. I don't believe in the templated stuff because I think it just goes to spam. No one really cares as much. They're out there. If they work for you, that's great. I'm not a huge fan of it. So I just create one in MailChimp, send it out, put in some personal stuff, and I get better reception to that. And just, reaching out occasionally, whether it's on social media, by text, phone, email, and through the years, again, any of the years that I do more of that, I have found there to be more business to come from it. And more importantly, just better, deeper relationships, which to me, yes, we want and maybe sometimes need the business, but the deeper I can have the relationship with to become more of a friend, that to me really is what it's all about. And if they refer someone, cool. If they have a listing, if they want to buy a second property, cool, whatever. But if I can just be there to help, that's awesome.
I think you really hit it there. Building relationships and being authentic. That's what people are looking for. So I love that you talk about your emails, that they're personal, and I mean, yours are probably perfect, but they don't have to be perfect when you're being authentic. Right. And I think that's really good advice in just reaching out. And we have talked about it before, and you started into it there, but you've got to grow your database. So you've got to be meeting new people. And I think a lot of people kind of get hung up a little bit on, as you're growing that, as you're talking to people, doing asks, the difference between kind of transactional and relational, how you're working that sphere and how you're reaching out to people and the kinds of things you're reaching out to them for. So I know people have tuned in because we have talked about that before. So teach us more, Blair. Your experience is already showing. We're already learning. So tell us more about that.
Definitely. And that's something, the whole like division between transactional and relational really, really bugs me. Because I think there's a part of our industry, as there is with everything, and people get super opinionated, and obviously I'm very opinionated on this, is, you're either a transactional or you're a relational realtor. And I call bullshit on that. I think, there's the people that whatever coaching program they're going to subscribe to or whatever, that are like, by referral only, you call your client up and then you bring them out for a coffee or whatever. And, you're paying for that coffee unless you make your client pay, which would, I think, be pretty silly, but, you're paying for that. So you're still paying for that lead from either them or whoever they're going to give to you. So if we're going to call the transactional realtor, the one that, buys internet leads, or, let's say calls expireds and FSBOs, and they're just calling them to get the transaction, and the thought that it's just over with. I mean, I'm sure that happens. There's clients with all of us that we all don't necessarily like that transaction as much as another one. But this division of, like you're either a transactional or relational realtor, I don't believe in it. As I said, any of the years that I focus more on my database does not mean I'm stopping the other efforts. I'm still on the phones, or at least my goal is 2 hours a day calling new leads, ones that we classify as the unmets. So call it a transactional, whatever, those they get added to my database. So then I can invite them to the pie giveaway, the movie night, all this stuff. And we develop the relationship. So, I mean, unless I'm the only realtor in the entire world that actually does both, maybe I'm the exception. And I know I'm the exception to many things anyway. And I'm, goofy and nerd and all this stuff. But like, I don't know how that division gets so separate. Like, I do both and I'm proud of it. I call online leads. I'm proud of it. And I get many clients and relationships from that lead source. And then they turn into the other category. So, like I was in a thread in a group on Facebook, and there was this person who chimed in, and he's like, I've been a coach for 20 years or 18 years, whatever. And like, you can't be both and whatever. And I was just like, it's crap. Like, it's not how it is, maybe to him, but not to everyone else. And maybe this is just to me too, but yeah. So I think there's a massive opportunity to do both, to get more. And it doesn't mean it has to stop. I like I said, I call online leads. I'm proud of it. I'll do it every day, and I enjoy it. And for me, it's a way to meet new people, and I like that aspect. And they turn into that relationship, and I enjoy it.
Yeah, and so tell us a little bit, because I think people are like, yeah, that's what I want to do. I think actually that's what people want to be doing, right? Because they know they need to meet new people, but everyone actually, I shouldn't say everyone, but I think people like to build those relationships, right? That makes it enjoyable. So maybe help us understand a little bit more how you spend your time. So like, do you have certain times or days of the week that you're just calling, and then that you spend on building relationships and nurturing? And after that, or as part of that, maybe when does someone go from an unmet and a contact to someone that gets to pick up a pie in your office? Like, how does it grow into that?
Sure. And I'll just add to that a little bit, if I can, is I think there's, with all of the everything out there, the hedge funds, the iBuyers, in there, the Open Doors, OfferPad, Zillow, whatever, they're attacking our industry and our databases. They're being hit with all of these messages more than we are hitting our databases with. So there's going to be times where they steal our clients. So, I think it's important to know that we have to stay in front of and top of mind with our clients and database. But just to also add into that. So what does that look like? So I try to be on the phones 2 hours a day. That's my goal. And in there, however I divide it, if it's 2 hours of new uncalled leads that have never picked up the phone, follow-up, expireds, FISBOs, canceled, circle prospecting, whatever it is. And then as I speak to them, meet with them, and then they get added to my other database. So they're in the REDX platform initially, and then they go somewhere else once I've spoken with them and met them. And then from there, they get added to everything. There's someone that I want to work with, and they want to work with me, and they don't have to be like a closed client. It's not like they're, super, they're special people, but it's not that they're not the super special ones yet that have only closed a deal with me. Like, they're ones that are going to trust me. That's just as important. So once we are in talks with each other, they're in that database, and they get everything: the newsletters, the calls, the emails, the invites, all that stuff.
So you move them pretty quickly. I mean, as soon as they become a contact that is responding to you, you move them and include them in all of your nurture campaigns and the things that you're doing to build relationships.
I try to. I mean, definitely once we meet, for sure, and showing homes or a possible chance of listing their home. But yes, there are definitely ones where once it's at a contact stage, they're in that group too.
So, and this will relate a little bit then to a question that came in from our audience. They said, how do you handle people in your sphere that open your emails but don't really engage with you directly via call or text? So maybe you see that they're on your open rates, that they're clicking through your emails,
Yeah.
but they're not picking up the phone or doing other things with you. How do you treat that? Do you do anything different? But yeah, how do you handle that?
So if they're in my sphere and not engaging, um, I just keep at it. The same way I would with an unmet. That there might be a time where they're busy that day. They can't pick up a pie. It's Thanksgiving. They have other plans. And maybe they don't like what I'm sending them at that present time. I mean, until they tell me stop sending it, we appreciate it. We enjoyed working with you. We don't need any of your stuff ever again. They're going to remain in it because I've seen it happen before where a couple things where I was inviting people to events and going through all these efforts and spending a lot of time on it. The money, there was some money involved, but it was more time, like spending a lot of time creating these, I thought, really cool invitations and all this stuff. And then like the turnout was really low. And I'm like, well, if no one's going to respond or, turnout's going to be low, why should I do it? But then I realized it's just the fact and thought of inviting that person. Not all of our schedules are going to match up, just like to those people that were 30 plus miles away driving in for the pie. She chose to make it that night, and other people couldn't. So I keep at it. They're still, I don't want to call them a lead, they're a client, but they're still in that group. I'm going to keep doing everything I can because it just might not work out for them that time.
I love that a lot, and I think that's a lot of mindset as well. You kind of, you could have gone down this road and taken it real personal if someone doesn't show up or respond the way that you expect or wanted them to. But you say you do your part, and then you keep them all in there, and you realize that they have other commitments, that this isn't the most important thing for them, perhaps that day, but keeping them in that nurture is going to eventually. I mean, it's a relationship building, and maybe it ends up in being top of mind when it comes time, and that's what you're hoping as you do that. I like that a lot. Go ahead.
You touched on it there with the mindset. It's all mindset. When I was doing it a couple times initially, I made it more about me, and then now it's all about the person that I'm reaching out to by text, email, newsletter, event, whatever. If they can't make it, don't want to, that's cool. That's their choice. I'm still doing my part.
Yeah, so you're holding a picnic because you generally want to hold a picnic, get to know people, not because you're expecting to close a deal that day or get a listing that day. It is that you're genuinely reaching out to continue that nurture.
100%. I'll be the first one to say, like all these coaches and trainers out there, like, you hold the event and then you follow up with the ones that were there to say, how'd you like it? Do you have a good time? And then you follow up with the ones that didn't to say, why couldn't you make it? I'm horrible at that side of follow up. So I'm really not doing it for referrals. I'm really doing it for the relationship. So it's not about the transaction. Like I'm happy and grateful to close deals, but it's all about the relationship. If I get a referral, cool. If I don't, I hope they enjoy the pie. I hope they take 5 of them. Like it matters, but it doesn't matter what comes of it other than them knowing that I'm there.
That's great. That's great. We talked a little bit about this pre-show, and I see it's come in across our questions from our audience, and I've seen it a ton, Blair. Every group I go to, just in the circles that I'm in, and I think a lot of it has to do with the low inventory, the question comes up, I have $500, or I have $1,000, or I have $400 for a lead gen budget. Where should I be spending that? And I see every possible answer to that question And so you know what you're doing, you're experienced. How do you answer that question for our, especially a newer agent that knows they should be putting money away for their marketing or their lead gen? How would you answer that question?
Awesome. So this is probably going to upset some people, but I would say I wouldn't invest it really at all because I don't think $500 will do much. Now, if it's $500 monthly, maybe that's totally different. But $500 in of itself, you could do Facebook leads and get those. You could, invite a bunch of your friends for coffee or dinner or whatever. I don't know that it will get very far. So, the answer is probably just keep it and, just have it in case of an emergency or whatever, and spend more of your equity into activities like prospecting. So, calling leads. So then the question is, well, if I don't have leads, who do I call? And then, then the money question comes in. Figure it out. Ask people in your office or brokerage, are there leads that you can call from them? If you have to create a list, then yes, spend it on some type of lead source, whether it's your guys's products or Facebook leads or Zillow or whatever. But I would almost always lead with the activity to generate income rather than spending money to potentially get something. So hold open houses. I'm not an open house holder. I know they work for agents. I'm not a fan of them. Just like for some people, they don't like prospecting, but find something, door knocking, open houses, go to a coffee shop and just talk to people. There's plenty of stuff that they can do at no cost that will then maybe help that budget grow to an amount that I think would be more sufficient. And then the question is, what is that amount? I don't know, because it depends on the source where you spend it. But if you want to spend it on Facebook leads, then go ahead and spend it. I buy Facebook leads and I love them, but they're also usually lower quality overall. So it takes more. So then you're just buying a bunch of leads to spend a bunch of time on. Not everyone's prepared for that. So my advice would be keep it in your pocket and find a way to not have to spend money. I think there's this misconception again, like you usually do have to spend money to make money, but initially that's not the case. Like you can find FSBOs with you guys. You can find them in other places for free, low cost, and all that kind of stuff to build that up over time to have more of a savings or expense budget.
Yeah. So let me see if I understand that right. So your advice is have a business plan. And if you have a plan, then you stick to it, right? So if your plan is prospecting, $500 doesn't change that. You should keep prospecting.
Totally.
Or if your business plan includes open houses or whatever it includes, double down on the activities that will get you more listings and get you more income until you have more than $500 to invest in it. Is that
absolutely? Yeah. And with open houses, if they're part of your plan and you enjoy doing them, then do more of them. And then if you like have to spend the money, then get more signs. So more signs are out and more advertising of the open house to get more traffic through the open house. So then you can convert more of that. So it's absolutely plan, mindset, and just sticking to it. That's the rules of the game. Like we just have to keep doing it. It's not like me picking up the phone to call expireds today will necessarily always have the outcome I want. It's doing it day after day after day for 10 plus years that yields the results that I need and want to see.
That's good. And I think a lot of people get lost on that, right? They want, and I don't know if it's, a new thing at all. I think people have always wanted the quick win, right? And they're like, hey, if I just throw this at Facebook, will I get more clients right away? And that's just not the case, right? It is those principles over time that ultimately get that. That's great. Good advice from someone that knows what they're talking about, right? 20 plus years. That's good. So we've got a couple other questions, people asking, so you're nurturing. Do you ever, when you're with your sphere, do you ever have an ask? Do you have any scripts or texts or emails that you send out for an ask from them? Or are you 100% nurturing in these activities and other communications you've talked about? How does, tell us about that.
Sure. I really try to stay away from who do you know that's looking to buy or sell. I just think they probably already know that I'm thinking that or would have been thinking it. So I don't like to treat someone the way that I don't want to be treated. If I get confused with double negatives, so I think you know what I mean. So like if I walk into a store, I don't want to be hounded by the dude or person, female, whatever, saying like, what are you, car salesperson, whatever we want to call them. What are you looking for? What can we do so you can walk away with this car today or whatever? Like, I'm just going to reach out because I want them to know that I'm there for them. The ask that I might have is, you completed a review of me on Zillow. Can you do it on Google? Or can you follow me here? Or can you do this here? It's not the referral based script. So it's, hey, Robert, it's Blair. It's been 10 years since we've spoken. Just wanted to see how you're doing and how everyone is doing, how things are going, and just having a conversation. I'm not really a script person, so it's just having a conversation, and if you stumble, it's more authentic. And here we go back to being more authentic. It's what they want to hear, what need to hear. It's how I want to come across, because I'm not a fake person. I want to be authentic. I am authentic. So yeah.
That's great. That's great. We have another question that came from our audience, from Amanda. And this goes back a couple questions ago when we're talking about our business plan. And she asked, how long do you follow your business plan before deciding to change it to get better results? I think that's a good question, because what if you realize you're not getting the results you want from what you thought?
Definitely, yeah. So, I think another problem in our industry is not sticking to our plan long enough to give it the time to figure out if it can work. So, I don't know that there's necessarily a specific time frame, but what I will say is, and I'm not saying I'm perfect at this, but I do my best to review my business plan at a minimum quarterly, to make sure I'm on track with it, what needs to be changed, either extending some goals, removing certain activities, whatever that is, so I can make sure that I then am on track for the rest of the year. So, there's definitely times where I review my plan, weekly and monthly and all that kind of stuff, but at an absolute minimum quarterly. So you can review what you've done that first quarter, knowing that if you then change it and now we're implementing new strategies, lead gen, whatever, it's probably going to be 90 days before you see a result at a minimum. And in this market, maybe a little bit longer. So give it another quarter before you just decide to toss it, because all those efforts, I can almost guarantee, will always pay off, but you need to give it the time.
So at least 90 days before you even review it again. But probably longer. But even I think something that you said that wasn't part of the question, but is important. You review it every 90 days, even when it's going well.
Oh, totally. Because then maybe my goals are too low. The income I desire to have, units, whatever. Or, maybe there's a case like this year where my average price point might end up being double than what I thought it was going to be. So now I have to change my plan to reflect that, because my unit count will be down. So that was revised, whatever, a month or two ago, to reflect what happened in Q1, what will happen in Q2, and then now as we get deeper into Q2, continuing to look at it, revise it, edit it, so the rest of the year is reflective of that.
That's great advice. We actually do that as a company, even a quarterly review of everything that we're working on, because I think that is a good amount of time, and especially if prospecting is part of of what you're doing every day. That needs to be a consistent activity. And if you don't give that enough time, you won't see the fruits of it. But 100%, if you give it the time, it does result. Those attitudes, that the daily activities that you have will result in what you're looking for. So
All the
good.
time.
That's great advice. Sorry to jump back. I'm like doing every other. It's like we get a question about something we talked 2 times ago. So the question
All
came
good.
up, and you kind of addressed this already, just in how you're reaching out to people, and honestly, that your asks aren't really hard asks. And so maybe that's the answer to this. But it's, how do you talk to your sphere without sounding salesy? And it's even in quotes, salesy.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that I've always struggled with because I don't want to come across as salesy. But the reality is we are in sales. So no matter what we do or say, I think it's going to sound salesy or could come across as salesy. So, and maybe that's the wrong mindset to have. So it's just trying to be authentic as possible. So, again, let's say you transacted with me 3 years ago. It could very well be that maybe I forgot to change that status or add you to the spot to make sure you're getting everything else. And I reach out and I'd be like, "Hey, Robert, it's Blair. It's been a while since we spoke. I'm sorry I lost touch. I really feel bad about it. I'm just checking in to see how you're doing, and how the family is and all that stuff." And then just seeing where the conversation goes from there.
And it comes back to this theme, I think, that you have in your business and where you're successful. And I think that's authenticity. Like the conversation you just had, the fake conversation you just had, I can see you doing that, because that's like, hey, I'm going to be honest. My bad. I didn't reach out, but I did want to talk to you. So let's get caught back up. It's this authenticity I think people are looking for. And you can ask, even if you're being authentic, then you still can ask. And something that you said earlier too was, people know you're a realtor. And so, and you said, I think they know what we're going after here. Right. And
Yeah.
so I think that's good.
Yeah. And there's people in my database that it has been a while since I've called them. They might get texts and emails, but an actual phone call, there might be people that it has been a while. So I'm not going to, lie about it, and I'm going to confront it and say exactly what I just said and feel bad about it, because I will. I'm not perfect. There's going to be people that I don't forget about, but I forgot to do the activity to call them. They're still on my mind or whatever. But yeah.
And so after 20 years, you've got this great database. You have a lot of past clients. You touched on this at the beginning as well, or you said this is what you do, but maybe help some newer agents out. What tools and resources are you using to grow your sphere and then organize it as well?
Okay. So to grow it is basically however I meet someone by phone or in person or whatever, I then so I have them at that stage and that part, and then they eventually go to my main CRM, which is basically Follow Up Boss. So they're in there with a certain category. I call it closed, so I know they've been closed. If they're pending, they're in the pending category, and they still get the stuff like I talked about. And then I then include that group in everything. So texts, emails, calls, invitations. I might use a online event system, Eventbrite or whatever it's called. I just forgot the name. So if I'm holding an event, here's the event. I'm doing the pie giveaway. I'll mail cards inviting them. Follow Up Boss has a cool integration with a system like Send Out Cards. That's not Send Out Cards. So I can send a card through there saying, I'm inviting you to this event, or happy birthday if it's a birthday on another note, and emailing them, calling them. I've done voice drops before. I don't think I've ever done a voice drop for a past client, because I just think that then might go back to the transactional issue, because I think they're more than just a mass number. So I try to make it more personalized. They're getting the newsletters by MailChimp, and any and any way that I can try to reach out to them. Maybe it's through a Facebook message if they're connected with me on Facebook to say, hey, I sent you this note. Did you get it? Whatever it is. And I'll do everything until, again, they tell me yes or no. And if it's bothering them, that I'm sorry, but I'm still trying to help. So that's it.
That's good. And in all of that media mix, Amanda asked, do you incorporate video into any of your follow-up?
I do. So this past year, and it was a nightmare to do it, but I actually did individual BombBomb videos to all of my database. So past clients, pendings, and the people that are in my pipeline, basically. So right before the beginning of the new year, wishing them a happy holiday and a happy new year and all that stuff. And the activity was a nightmare because recording each of those and then transporting it to a platform to be able to send them was just a drag. But the feedback was great, and I didn't want to send the message that just said, hey, it's Blair wishing you a happy holidays. That went to everyone, like with a YouTube link. I didn't, like a voice drop. I didn't think that would be me. It wouldn't be authentic. So yeah, spent, I don't know, it took like 2 weeks to do it. Not because the database is that big, just because after doing like 10 or 15 of those, it was exhausting. So I had to do it day after day after day.
And did you see an increased engagement?
I would probably say no.
So back to one YouTube video next year.
Back to buying everyone a coffee, Robert.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Getting everyone a coffee. Good. So when you're working with your sphere, these are people that you have some contact with and usually know them at least a little bit, right? So what objections do you actually run into when working with your sphere? Do you have much pushback, or what kinds of objections do you hear when working with your sphere?
So I'm kind of one of those agents that put like sphere and database into one. And the sphere to me, if that's the family member, hairdresser, whatever, like they just go into my database. And really, I if I get an objection, I'm oblivious to it because I don't take it that way. So I honestly cannot give you any because I can't recall one. And it very well could be that I'm just blocking it out, but it's more that I just feel like I don't get them. Not because I have such like massively, incredibly deep relationships. It's just that I don't feel I get them. It's either ignoring me or yes, I'll be there.
And I think again goes back to what you've been just harping on for all of us is if you're authentic, then it's kind of hard to be like. They just have to be like, Blair, I don't like you, right? Like, and stay away from me. Because if you, so there are objections. No, that's good. Yeah, no, if you're being authentic, I think that's true, right? If you're reaching out and looking for those relationships and building relationships that you wouldn't see as many of those.
Well, and since you said that, and I jokingly said something, and you did too, I'll add to that, which is if I've transacted with someone and I don't feel like they valued me at the end. They I'm not gonna say trusted me, but they worked with me to get to the final endpoint, buying a home, selling a home, whatever. If I don't feel like there was a good enough relationship there and they felt like I burnt them or something went south, whether my fault or not, they're not going to be in the database. Because I have the feeling that they probably don't want to work with me again, and I might not want to work with them again. So they're not in there. So my database is going to be smaller because it's those that have trusted me to help them with their real estate goals that I enjoy working with them, and I feel they enjoyed working with me.
I've heard that advice before, or similar advice that there are a lot of people that you can be nurturing and building relationships with, and yeah, if there are people that are going to take more of your time and effort, and not just time and effort, but just even your emotional well-being away from you, then there are other people you can be. There are people that you can be adding that to that are easier to work with, right? So you can get to that point.
Totally.
That's
Much
good.
rather go deeper than wider on the relationships.
That's good. That's good. Well, Blair, we're coming up to our time here, and so I want to just leave a little bit open for you to give any advice, because you've been doing this a long time. You've seen the ups and downs of the industry. You've been a long time REDX customer, and you're successful at what you do. So just maybe leave us with any final thoughts or advice you have, especially for those new agents getting in this completely unprecedented low inventory market.
Absolutely. So I would say just mindset is everything to me. You know, whether you're an experienced agent, newer agent, whatever, having that right mindset to just know that, you know, real estate is cyclical on all levels. This eventually will change. I don't know when, but you know, we're not going to in Phoenix stay at half a month's supply forever. It's impossible. So have the right people around you on all levels, whether it's broker, you know, Facebook groups, social media. Have the right people around you to keep your spirits up. So if you're showing 85 homes and writing 84 offers and not getting any accepted, there's probably going to be a feeling of deflation. So what can you do to bring those spirits up as much as possible, to know that, okay, that all sucks, but I have to keep doing this, because I can look back at all of my 20 plus years or whatever, and know that the times that I've been most successful, I'm just sticking to the activities that I know will yield me results by having that business plan. So making sure I have it, sticking with it, analyzing it. And the sticking with it doesn't mean sticking to the same plan that you initially wrote on, you know, December 31st at 11:59 p.m. It just means sticking with the plan. And I think so many people get so hung up on, like, what do I need in my plan? And they ask me that question, and I'm like, I don't know. Like, I don't know what you like to do. So if you like open houses, do open houses. If you don't like anything, that might be a problem. But you know, like I took to prospecting, and we've been together, REDX and I, for quite a while, whether it's 12, 13, 14 years, I don't know, or more. But I've loved prospecting, and I try to do it every day, or at least be on the phones, maybe not prospecting, but be on the phones calling. So stick with it, have the right people around you. And by right people, try to have the people that know what they're talking about with the right mindset, so they're not feeding you a bunch of garbage to then bring you more down when they really don't know what they're talking about. And it's hard to find those people, probably harder on social media, to find those right relationships, but just sticking with it. Like, there's experienced agents out there writing multiple offers that don't get accepted. We just have to stick with it. It's a grind. It's been more of a grind, but as time goes on, it's probably going to be even more of a grind, with more iBuyers, more competitiveness, all this stuff. Everything continues to change. Like, that's the only constant, that there is change, and you guys are continuing to change. You continue to bring the value with your products, which are amazingly awesome. So if someone has that opportunity to look into REDX to get your stuff, by all means, you know, I absolutely suggest that. Follow you guys, read the material. I read it. I love seeing the different stuff that you guys email out and have on podcasts. Like, I'm learning from it, and it's awesome.
That's great. Thanks for that, Blair, and really good advice. It's about mindset, business plans, sticking to it, and authenticity. I'm going to add that in there because that's been a theme. And Blair, absolutely, what a good time having you on our podcast today. You are an authentic guy. That's why you've been successful for a long time. We've got a lot of good stuff for myself, and thanks for sharing all this valuable information with our whole audience today. Hey, look, if you want to know more about Blair, he has his own website, blairballin.com, so you can know more about our great guest today. If you are watching or listening, you want to continue this conversation. We had a lot of conversation going, some good questions, but you can check us out on Facebook at REDX Elite Prospectors Group. You can also go into our forum, our customer forum at forum.theredx.com. And if you're new to the podcast, if this is the first time you're joining us and want to get caught up, you can find us on YouTube. You can find us at redx.com/podcast and get caught up. And you can also find us wherever you get your favorite podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, SoundCloud. We're everywhere. Listen to us, get caught up. Thanks so much for being here, Blair. Thanks so much to our whole audience for listening in today. And wherever you are, just search for the REDX podcast and subscribe so you can be notified every time I release a new episode. Thanks again, Blair. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you. You too.